Greetings, my movie geeks. The Nate here, the Ultimate Movie Geek. This is going to be not the last podcast. I'm not going to say that, but it's going to be the last podcast until about February, because I just want to get things in order. This year I want to be a little bit more organised with release dates, and I want to make sure that we can try and get a podcast out weekly. We've also had a couple of problems after Christmas with my dog Meg. She's not too well at the moment, so there's a lot of care that needs to go into looking after her at the moment, so I can't really sort of justify doing all this when she's not too well. She's getting better. She's got a lot of antibiotics, and she's perked up over the last few days. So I'm hoping that she's gonna be well again. So fingers crossed. But like I say, I'm gonna take a break until about February, when it's only 20 days away, when we get back on the ball. I just need a bit of time to gather my thoughts, see which direction I want to go in, because I've been thinking about setting up a website as well, and I'd like to be able to do things each week, whereas sometimes, as you've known if you've listened before, we sometimes miss a week or miss 2 weeks because we just can't meet up and do it. And like today, even today, this is like a test run for me doing solo podcasts on my own. That's what a solo podcast means, Nate. Stop being a dick. So yeah, I'm going to try and get on with it, and I just want a plan for the year ahead. I'm still going to be writing for World Geekly News, but again, that's died off a little bit because I just don't have the time to do it. I do work a full-time job, which... adding on 2 hours a day travelling, it just takes up all my time. 3 kids and a poorly dog and a wife. Everything. But I do love doing this, so it's not going to be long until I'm back on it. Like I say, February is 20 days away. We'll get back. But yeah, I hope you had a good New Year and Christmas. And I hope you enjoy this review of Star Wars. So let's get on it. Thank you for listening. See you in a bit.
It's an instinct. A feeling. The Force brought us together. We're not alone. Good people will fight if we lead them.
People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
But I do.
Long have I waited. And now, you're coming together. Is your undoing.
What are you doing there, 3PO?
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
Confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. Your destiny. The Force will be with you.
Always.
Should have my earphones on, really. Fuck. Greetings, my movie geeks. 42 years in the making, and finally the Skywalker saga has ended. Star Wars 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is the second film to be written and directed by J.J. Abrams. Following on from the story from both Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, its ultimate aim was to end Rey and Kylo Ren's story, at the same time as give a satisfying end to the story George Lucas began with Star Wars back in 1977. But after watching the film, does it satisfactorily end the saga? Does it right the potential wrongs that some think The Last Jedi made? And does it hold up as a Star Wars film? If you've watched my spoiler-free review, you'll know that I was kind of finding it hard to judge whether it was a good film or a bad film, with many people shouting at me saying, just say it's bad. So, what I'll do is I'll go through what I remember and take it from there. Beware of spoilers if you haven't seen this film, or just enjoy me ranting. And give this video a like and a subscribe, because I like to talk to people. It's a little less quiet than just talking to myself. We'll go through story, or at least parts of the story first. From the opening scroll, and from what we'd already learnt from the trailers, Emperor Palpatine is back. Kylo Ren goes on the hunt through the galaxy to find Palpatine and kill him. Rey has continued being trained by Leia, who she refers to as Master, which would have been an amazing storyline if Carrie Fisher hadn't have died. She's so selfish. She's also using the sacred texts from Act 2. Finn and Poe are in communication with a mole from the First Order, which it's pretty obvious who that mole is. But that's just a recap of where all the characters are after the Battle of Crate in The Last Jedi. But what is the story? Well, and I'm being completely serious here, that I don't think I can actually tell you what the story is. I don't even think the writers of this film could tell you what the story is. The Emperor has offered Kylo Ren access to the biggest galactic force ever seen, because, you know, it's Star Wars, everything needs to be bigger. There's always a bigger fish, as it was said in a previous prequel film. Each Star Destroyer is a mini Death Star with capabilities of destroying every planet in the galaxy. In exchange, Palpatine wants Rey dead. So that's pretty simple, straightforward, yeah? Rey, Finn and Poe, accompanied by BB-8 and C-3PO, are on a mission to discover the location of Palpatine in a series of never-ending, but fairly straightforward side quests. Like the Canto Bight sequence in The Last Jedi, except everything goes right this time. Even when it goes wrong, it ultimately goes right, and they don't stick the landing, and they don't have the balls to, go through with a death. Rey is discovering secrets from her past through interactions with Kylo Ren, using the Force that was set up in The Last Jedi, which I think the way they've evolved this Force power is really well done. This interaction ranges from talking to lightsaber dueling across vast distances, and that's what I mean about how well it's been done. It is an interesting evolution of the Force power, as well as a nice culmination linking the two later on in the film. I'm not for the whole Reylo crap. I hate putting two names together and saying them, so that hurt me a little bit. But the connection here does work, especially when they're fighting against each other and they can have this sort of lightsaber duel when they're not even in the same room. It's really well done. I can say that the story works if you accept everything that went before was the plan of Palpatine, but without Palpatine's involvement in The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, there's no real link to him. The only way you have a link is the fact that in the opening you see a vat of cloned Snokes in amongst. I think there's one cloned Ripley in there as well. Only link to it. It is feasible, but it's a little bit of a stretch. You need to have those those ideas spread out throughout the whole trilogy. I said it before, it feels like this film is what Abrams would have potentially liked to have done if he had done the full trilogy, but as Disney decided they would have this different directors, different approach. And I think if say J.J. Abrams had done the trilogy, or say if Rian Johnson had done the trilogy, I think we would have had two very coherent, very well-made trilogies. But we'll see. You never know. They might come back and do another trilogy. But I think J.J. Abrams is done now. We'll go through the characters. There is no slight on any of the actors in this film. They play with what they're given extremely well, even though the film is extremely rushed. Rey is still finding herself. She is becoming an accomplished Jedi, learning under Leia. But as she attempts to run the Jedi course, or whatever it is, she becomes distracted with a vision, just like Luke did on Dagobah. Dagobah. She still has a lot to learn, and now there's a threat of the dark side taking her. Ooh, scary. Leia, unfortunately, suffers due to the death of Carrie Fisher. But with the use of unused footage from The Force Awakens, I think it's just The Force Awakens, they were able to include her in the narrative. If it's a little bit odd with line deliveries and lines that actually seem very out of place, and a little bit, you could say they're philosophical, because they don't really make any sense, and you know, if they were taken out, you wouldn't have lost anything. Her story ends with Kylo's in quite a good way. It's quite interesting, but due to lack of footage, she is killed off probably just before the halfway point. We do get a nice flashback of Luke training Leia as a Jedi post the Return of the Jedi. But this, for me, even if it's a little bit clunky, it only serves as a tease to what could have and maybe should have happened in the 90s if the series should have continued after Return of the Jedi. But, you know, we didn't get that. So it's kind of like a carrot that has been taken away from us quite quickly. Finn here has a lot more to do than the last film, being Rey's closest friend, but again, they seem to want to keep him away from her. He's become a good leader within the Resistance, and it is strongly suggested that he either loves Rey or he has discovered that he has some Force sense. I was initially thinking that there's a moment where he says that he wants to tell her something. Now, I initially thought this was because he loves her, but I was pointed out that there's a lot of things that suggest that he might be Force sensitive in the film, and I think he's even... I can't remember his name! John Boyega has said that this is probably what it was supposed to be, but it's never followed up on. You get a couple of mentions of it, but that's it. There's no real payoff to it. Other than that, he is... we'll get to Rose, but he is thrown aside to be in another battle sequence with a new character, which you could have said, or maybe should have been Rose, who was with him. Obviously, they're trying to pander to fan reactions. Anyway, Poe becomes the leader after Leia dies, and despite learning lessons in The Last Jedi, his character doesn't feel like he can do it. There's a nice moment, and I say moment because it is short, where Poe and Rey argue like a couple of siblings, and it is quite a good moment. But again, because there's so much to cram into this film, they don't get the time to finish this off or fulfill it. And I suppose it's a way of giving us the characters we had in the original series, and we'll get to the bit later on where they are reunited spoilers, and they hug. Like it's a three-way hug, but there's no build-up to that. You don't get that sense that they are that close because we haven't seen it on film. Rey only met Poe at the end of The Last Jedi, so it doesn't work. Lando's back, and although he's not in it long, Billy D. Williams is as smooth as silk, gotta say. There is quite a cringy moment at the end where another new character is brought in, and she's pretty much the female version of Finn, who was stolen at birth. when you start talking about this film, you can see what they were doing. It's like they have gone on Reddit and just taken ideas from there. But this moment is Lando offers to help find out who this woman is. But the way he does it is, it's almost like he wants to sleep with her. And then later on, after the film's finished, they've released the idea that there's going to be a comic where it is actually his daughter. But then again, it's the Star Wars universe, so what do you expect? We also get the Knights of Ren creeping about the desert and streets. They get seen a few times, and then there's a small fight at the end, and it's really, really hardly worth talking about because they are just they were brought in, and the idea was they were these big group, the Knights of Ren. It sounds so cool, but they could have just been switched out with stormtroopers because they don't do anything. They arrest Chewie at one point, and that is it. It's very, very odd that they've been built up, but again, because Last Jedi didn't really touch on them at any point. Or you could argue that they were Snoke's guard and that they were killed, but it's just it's just like stitched together. It's crap. That's all they do. They don't do anything. They fight Kylo Ren later on. Kylo Ren is the supreme leader of the First Order and seems to have grown in power. We have a reminiscent scene of Ren pushing one of the leaders. Punishing. It's supposed to be a nod back to Vader choking the guy out in the first one. But this time he throws him up to the ceiling. Ren also remakes his helmet. Now, I don't understand why he did this. I just don't know. Maybe because it was Snoke who told him to get rid of it, and now he's realised that Snoke wasn't real. It was just the Emperor. But what I enjoyed about Ren in this is that we get a manifestation of his light side, as well as Luke's final words to Ren being brought to life in this film, as we see Han Solo return to help his son with the final step back into the light. And that is a good scene. This is, no lie, I got goosebumps. I've even got goosebumps now. It was nice closeout for Solo's character, even if it is in Ren's mind and we don't know if it's real. But it's a good send-off for him because he comes back and you get the same scene that you got in The Force Awakens where he's trying to take the lightsaber. He's got his hand on the lightsaber. And this time, Kylo Ren gets rid of the lightsaber and he becomes Ben Solo again. And I think that, like I say, I've got goosebumps now talking about it. I think it's a well-made scene. It's really good to see Harrison Ford back again. And I think it closes off Kylo Ren's arc, which I think he's had probably one of the best arcs in this series. And even that wasn't a great arc. The interaction between them both is emotional. And we get Solo reaching out to Ben as he did before he fell into Starkiller Base. It's just a great scene. So there is some good points. I'll go through some likes and dislikes because I feel like I'm not too sure which direction to go in, to be honest. The biggest emotion I felt was when Leia died and they told Chewbacca. And I feel like the best acting was from Chewbacca at that point, because he pushes Poe away and starts screaming. And it's a long shot. Everyone's looking at him, and he drops down to the floor. And his reaction to Leia being dead is by far the most heartfelt scene in the whole film. It actually brought a tear to my eye. But it was very late when I saw the film, so, I'm a man. I try to be. Despite the story seeming forced, that pun was intended. It is written right in front of me. The interaction between the three core characters, Rey, Finn and Poe, is quite believable. It's clearly where they wanted the three to be at this point, but because The Last Jedi split the characters up, like Empire Strikes Back did, Poe, I've already said Poe was only introduced to Rey in The Last Jedi. It is believable, but it's a bit of a stretch. But I think it's down to the talents of the actors that make you believe this. Again, like I say, Poe and Rey have an argument which they seem like they've done it before. They seem like, because they're arguing over the ship, the Millennium Falcon, and they're arguing over BB-8 being damaged, and it does work. And again, I think I like the idea of Finn loving Rey, but I don't think it's ever been really built on. Anyway, let's move on. Guess who returns? Emperor Palpatine. I know, I've already said it. And I've got to say, the way they introduce him, he is absolutely horrifying. He repeats his line from Revenge of the Sith that the dark side is seen to be unnatural. And he's hooked up to some kind of device, almost like the Animus from Assassin's Creed. He's just sort of hanging there, being kept alive by this big scorpion arm that goes into his spine. It's really quite cool. He's blind and he looks like death. But I'd argue the dark side, being able to keep you alive, is just science. Ian McDiarmid portrays the character with ease. But compared to, say, the prequel trilogy and even The Last Jedi, every time, even Return of the Jedi, I think he dials it back a bit to a slow menace that we saw in the early parts of Return of the Jedi. So it's good. Bringing back the Emperor, despite nullifying everything that's gone before, is actually a very simple addition to the series. He was there when Anakin Skywalker was found, potentially even made Anakin Skywalker, and he was there to see the last Skywalker die. Or does he? Well, he does. Anyway. What I would say about this is it's clear that it wasn't planned. Snoke was supposed to be the villain, but they killed him off in The Last Jedi, and bringing the Palpatine back was just a way of tying everything back up, but it doesn't really work. We'll go through some dislikes, shall we? Right. Hello, Meg. Go to bed. The story, or lack thereof, is completely rushed. It becomes a MacGuffin hunt following a MacGuffin hunt to get the characters to where they need to be at the end of the film. The problem is that with each hunt, they seem to have no real threat against them. Sure, there's some Knights of Ren skulking behind the shadows. Stormtroopers have learnt to strap jetpacks on the backs, which to me is quite unbelievable. You'd have thought, especially with the Mandalorian having many jetpack wearing characters, you'd have thought that the Empire or the First Order would have had jetpacks. Sadly, I think the pacing is all off. We're thrown from action set piece to action set piece, followed by another one. And I think that's its biggest letdown. I think there's no real direction for this film. They know what they want to get to. They want to emulate Return of the Jedi. The review, what the notes I'm reading from, were written in two parts. The initial and the stewed. I was in such a rush to get it out that my initial feelings were used as a basis, and they weren't too positive. I do stand by the fact that it is rushed, but after a good few days of letting it sink in, well, almost a month, J.J. Abrams, the cast and the crew were able to pull off a final Star Wars film that had emotional moments, funny moments, and some standout scary moments, especially Palpatine. It is extremely rushed, and I think, again, that is its biggest letdown, and could have maybe benefited from being part 1 of 2. Again, this goes to say that J.J. Abrams maybe should have done the whole trilogy, or I would have preferred Rian Johnson to do the whole trilogy, because I think his filmmaking is 10 times better than J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams emulates, whereas Rian Johnson creates. But I do like J.J. Abrams. I just, don't get me wrong, I think he's very good at finding that 80s aesthetic and Spielbergian eyes on scene, I don't know. Just the way he does his films is very, very Spielberg. But I think Rian Johnson would have been better to take this in a different direction. I've lost where I am. It is extremely rushed. It could have benefited being part 1 of 2, rounding the 9-film series to 10. And I think that would have been quite a good place to stop. And to be honest, the ending of this film does leave it open for another film or maybe even trilogy, but we'll see. What we got was extremely Star Wars. It was, you can't deny that. You get planet hopping and a space battle at the end. And lightsabers, don't forget the laser swords. But does this mean Rey was the chosen one to bring balance to the Force? Or was Anakin the one who did that? There is a line that is read by Hayden Christensen, which says to Rey at the end of the film, spoilers again, restore order as I once did. Now, did he? Did he really? Because it looks like he didn't. So, that's what I mean. It doesn't answer any questions. It's supposed to end off a 9-film series, but it just doesn't. I haven't hidden the fact that I really enjoyed The Last Jedi. You can watch my In Defense of The Last Jedi on my channel. I also did a In Defense of the Canto Bight scene, which you can watch or listen to. Yeah. Even putting in, I'd probably put it above some of the original trilogy movies. But in the end, these films are Star Wars. This film feels like it's been pieced together from Facebook's finest meme creators, or, like I said before, a Reddit thread. But there is precedent for this story being the final note in the saga. It just follows the same tone and story of the other films. Overall, the movie is a quick watch, clocking in at 142 minutes. It gets through the story quick and doesn't leave anything out. Well, it does, but let's not go back. It brings back old characters, focuses on the journeys of the new characters, and it allows for past mistakes to be corrected. Again, I don't think there were many mistakes from Last Jedi. I think everyone wanted something new, something different, after Force Awakens was just a copy of A New Hope. But it was just a little bit too different, and people didn't like it. So they brought J.J. Abrams back to sort of rectify, and I think that was its detriment. If the message for The Last Jedi was let the past die, the message for this movie should be learn from it, so not to make the same mistakes again. I am going to give this film a firm 3 out of 5 stars, because it does work, it just works, but tries hard to please everybody. And ultimately, it will please very few, unfortunately. I won't say go and see it, because you'll have probably already seen it. But remember, we are only a few years away from the next Star Wars film, so I wouldn't worry. There will probably be another trilogy, even though they say they won't be. They're going to add on to this, and I do reckon the cast from this will come back down the line somewhere. And I'd love to see Rey as a full-fledged Jedi. And don't forget, there's The Mandalorian, which I've been hearing all about and watching, but don't tell the mouse. Alright, he took one of my videos down the other day. And I've been secretly watching it. I'm living in the UK, we haven't even got Disney Plus yet. But shh, don't tell anyone. I'm the Ultimate Movie Geek, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Is it a review? Or just a random link sentences? I'm not too sure. Please let me know what you thought in the comments below. I want to know if anyone who's watched this liked the film or disliked the film. I'd like to know. I'd like to start the conversation, or at least join the conversation, because I'm very lonely. You can comment below or at me on Twitter at Movie Ultimate. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And again, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ultimate Movie Geek. And thank you for watching.